can forget about getting rid of your stalker. Now you'll have two of them!
I'm the club president. Can I not visit my own club?
Sure.
Okay, that has got to be his ex.
There's no way in hell. Maybe Senpai's just into older women. As if! Don't you even start that sentence!
Naoto is a certified virgin besides being a clumsy-ass loser. He cannot look girls in their eyes and gets bullied by them on top of that, despite being their senior. The bullying gets to him so much that he has developed Stockholm Syndrome and falls in love with his bully. He also discovers that he likes to get stepped on, just like you do. The story of Naoto begins as he walks into the library all full of aura, only to get his aura drained when he notices his mortal enemies, girls. He still soldiers on and sits down to work as he yaps to himself what he learned about girls from the Sigma male podcasts. He finishes his work despite their chatter, but notices that the girls are gossiping about him. He then remembers his god, Andrew Tate, and musters up the courage to leave. But one of the girls gets too close to him. Bro then loses his composure in front of her as he drops all his belongings and books, one of which reveals that he's a hentai artist. They gang up and laugh at his creation, but one of the girls, Hayase Nagatoro, becomes a fan of his work. She introduces herself before showing off her iconic smile, the default display picture of every weeb on social media. After claiming him as her senpai, she begins to roleplay his manga, and laughs at him for his self-insert. She then points out a flaw in his storyline and asks him to reenact the scene, as she shows off her martial arts skills. Naoto then proves that she's correct, as he shows why he lives vicariously through his art. Nagatoro then begins her torture session, pointing out that senpai could not look her in the eyes, and that he's a virgin creep. He gets tearful after she reveals the truth and delivers the ultimate blow by offering him her handkerchief. Later at night, he could not get his mind to stop playing her voice repeatedly, making him lose his sleep. The next day, Hayase follows her senpai to the art class and offers to model nude for him for plot development.
Yeah, boy.
But as Naoto has never seen Titanic or a girl naked, he crumbles and agrees only to draw her normally. But Bro could not draw her as this was the first time he had seen a girl not run away from him. She then tells him that he's acting sus, before telling him that there's a reward if he draws her. But Senpai Jr. stands up and he asks her what the reward is, but she tells him it's a secret before she goes. Senpai draws her and expects his reward as she gets her lips close to his, only to get blue-balled and be laughed at again. She calls him a twink, pointing out that he cannot even draw her thighs, and overpowers him, which makes him cry again. But despite all of that, she shows her tender side as she wipes his tears for him. Naoto is not let off the hook, though, as he learns that they have the same route home and gets toyed with by her again. After she almost murders him, she asks him why he does not get pissed at her. This makes him remember his past, and he tells her that he has a bullying kink and will tolerate her before asking her name, and almost cooms as she writes the N-word, Nagatoro, on his chest.
You naughty, naughty. You teasing me, you naughty, naughty.
A day later, Naoto is peacefully drawing when his cowhide bursts into the room with a hoop. She then shows him her hip motion and asks him to give her back shots. Naoto tries to enter but gets flustered by her panty shot before getting beaten for being a pervert, because it's obviously his fault. Later, Naoto finally gets to enjoy his alone time by reading about big booby vampires.
What?
But Nagatoro gets there to stop him from gooning. She also snatches his book by promising to let him hit, but of course it's a ruse as she teases him further, this time by shoving her honkers in his face. He then rationalizes that he only read it for the plot and makes her read it as well. She likes the story and tells him that he doesn't have to worry about vampires since he's a virgin, while loudly sucking a juice box dry. Noto asks for proof of her claim when suddenly the lights go off. He then gets scared as he believes that she's a vampire. She then shows off her pit bull canines before getting on top of him to suck him dry, claiming he's her prey as she strokes his neck. He uses garlic breath to get her off, but she's adamant about sucking him dry before grabbing Senpai Jr., telling him that his wish is fulfilled. On their way home, Naoto is asked if that's the first time his other head has been touched before offering to edge him with proper technique. He is again left with blue balls, though. Later, he tweaks at the thought of having his nipples grabbed by Nagatoro. The next day, his wish gets fulfilled as Nagatoro challenges him to a game of melon hunting with a grand prize of a do-anything-for-me card. She then explains that he can use it to stop the bullying or even make her his muse.
Stop it.
Get some help.
He is reluctant at first, but sees this as an opportunity to get her to stop and agrees. Naoto then loses the battle but wins the war, as he gets his nipples played with despite losing. He just keeps on winning, though, as he gets to touch melons for the first time. But then he again gets blue-balled as Nagatoro escapes due to performance pressure. Later, Mr. Blueballs goes to a secluded cafe to work on his hentai, but Nagatoro shows up there with Sakura and 2 boys. He eavesdrops on their double date to see if she's like that with other boys, but gets shocked to see her school them. He then wonders if she only plays with him, only for Nagatoro to get there to bully him as she calls him a worm. Senpai is peacefully drawing, but Nagatoro again requests to model for him, which he again rejects because he has his virginity shield on. But this time, she drops her shirt and skirt off to show him something he has never seen, a school swimsuit.
Really, nigga?
After school, the two are then running through a drizzle and decide to take cover against the rain. Nagatoro then decides to tease her senpai by calling him a closeted pervert, but indirectly asks him to look at her see-through uniform. Senpai thinks that she's wearing a swimsuit underneath and looks at her, only to see her lingerie. They then decide to run home, as the rain does not seem to stop. Despite being a loser, Senpai is blessed with the MC Riz, as he gets invited to her place. His luck maxes out as he finds out that no one is at her place, after almost busting at the thought of getting bullied by her family. He's then offered some clothes and a towel by her, but being a gooner, he tries to sniff the towel, thinking Nagatoro dries herself with it, only to get caught red-handed. The two then get to her room and she asks him about the things guys and girls do when they're alone. Bro activates his shield once again and talks about studying, but Nagatoro tells him that she was actually talking about using fingers for the game controllers. Naoto beats her in the first round, but gets scared that he might have pissed her off. But he then thinks that this is the only way to get back at her for bullying him, only to lose to her strategies. Despite everything, he seemed to enjoy spending time with her, especially after getting stepped on. They then part ways, but not before he gets teased by her. The next day, lunchtime is in full swing as even Senpai has descended to eat at the canteen. He sees no seats for him though, but Nagatoro has reserved a special spot next to her for him. After seeing no alternatives, he sits down and gets introduced as her boyfriend. They then rat him out after learning he has not expanded her domain due to his heavenly restriction, the virginity shield. The bullying gets passed on as Paisen is teased by Gamo with various names and is touched by Yoshi. This triggers a yandere Nagatoro, who warns her to not touch him before defending him against Gamo. Paisen then gets up to yell that he's not her boyfriend before going blank, making Hayase's friends laugh at him more. Nagatoro teaches her boyfriend how to give a rebuttal back against teasing, but Bro's such a loser that he cannot do anything. She teaches him slapping, but he still cannot do anything and begins his waterworks, making her feel bad. He finally manages to throw one, but hits her on the boing boing, which opens up the avenue for a barrage of insults again. Days pass, and Senpai is washing his hands after a long time of oil painting. Suddenly, his succubus gets there and wants to wash her hands at the same tap. Then, out of nowhere, she begins to talk about them taking a steamy shower and flusters Naoto. He then gets his hands stroked, silly style. Naoto cannot bear it any longer and runs to the bathroom to rub one out, while Hayase watches him go with a smile.
I don't know what the just happened, but I don't really care. I'ma get the up out of here, shit, I'm out.
Some days later, Senpai is eating his lunch when he senses a disturbance. He thinks it's the light-skinned demon, but his worst nightmare comes true as Yoshi and Gamo enter. They tell him that they finally found his hideout and give him menacing grins. They then plot with themselves before having the bright idea to talk about melons, asking Naoto if he has ever touched one. They add that there are rumors about Naoto having heavenly restrictions, aside from being a closeted man of culture. Gamo then offers to break his curse, and both of them hypnotize him with their melons. Before the story turns into 6 digits, Senpai zestily runs towards the door but gets caught by Yoshi. He is again overpowered by a girl, and the two force him to touch Gamo's buns, only to reveal they're in fact buns.
What's wrong with you, bro? What the heck? You tripping, bro? You tripping!
Naoto is disappointed as the two laugh at him for thinking he is going to honk some knockers. But Hayase arrives with a stern look. They notice that she's ready to throw some hands and use the Joestar technique to dip from there. Nagatoro then congratulates him on losing his hand's virginity, but he tells him that he squeezed some cheap buns only. She then has the brightest idea to play a similar game of guessing the buns, with the reward of touching her premium bun. She then tucks both buns in her shirt and lets him go ham to detect which bun is softer. Naoto performs some massages on the right bun after being called a coward, but while doing so, the left bun drops. He then goes for the left and does a full checkup, before exclaiming that the left is premium, only to notice the bun on the floor.
Nice.
Naoto fears he's going to prison for groping, only to get violated by Hayase's bun. 2 days later, Nagatoro volunteers for modeling again as she brings in an old sofa to pose on. She also talks about how he seems a bit sad and notices the baseball team's captain being praised by his teammates. He opens up that since he's a loser, he's never been praised before, even though he's good at art. After hearing that he'd like to be praised, Hayase tells him he needs to praise others first, and asks him to compliment her. Naoto overthinks it as usual and wonders what to compliment her on, as anything he says will label him creepy, and settles on praising her hair. She laughs and calls him a goofy ass before asking for more. He then tells her that she's pretty badass since he saw her spin kick on their first meeting. Nagatoro then decides to praise him but concludes that there is nothing worth praising him for. She then poses provocatively, but his virgin ass cannot handle all that. Instead of working hard, he cannot work due to being hard, even though she's posing normally. Hayase then dozes off after seeing his behavior, which finally has him create a pretty good drawing of her. She then rewards him with a kiss with her damn pocket toy.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
As usual, Nagatoro drops to call her senpai gross, but he does not budge. She tries to get a reaction out of him, only for him to become a Chad and go out with her friends. She then wakes up to find that it's only a dream before telling senpai he's not that gross. The next day, Nagatoro challenges senpai to a game of tickle battle to claim that he'd make goofy noises. She successfully proves her claim by tickling him breathless, and also claims that she's not sensitive. She also strips to reveal her swimsuit and lets Naoto finger her armpit. He closes in to finger her, but Hayase backs off by telling him he has creeper eyes. She shows a sheep reel she found from her doom scroll before discovering that her senpai is a sheep. She talks about his long poof ball, and after hearing that he's going to visit the barber, she whips out her brother's razor. She excitedly tells him that she just wants to cut his tip, but later settles for hair scissors. Naoto immediately accepts because he gets a chance to be caressed by Hayase. They start when suddenly she has to go, as she gets asked for notes by Gamo through a phone call. The phone call turns out to be a diversion as Yoshi and Gamo enter the art room and see the shaver. They then decide to give senpai a fresh cut and hold him down. He then activates his defense mechanism as Nagatoro finally learns about their trap. They hold senpai, who pleads with them, but the razor inches closer to him. Nagatoro arrives to open a can of whip-ass. A stare-down happens, but they throw the shears at Nariata and run away Looney Tunes style. The haircut finally proceeds, and Hayase gives her senpai a fresh cut. He's thankful for making him less twinkly, but she calls him a creep, as she cannot handle compliments. Some days later, summer rolls around, and Hayase asks senpai for some freshly shaved ice. They get to the shop to see a line long enough to match iPhone launch days. Nagatoro is so adamant about getting her shaved ice that she almost kills Naoto when he suggests ice cream. The two wait in line as senpai protects Hayase from some perverts trying to peek. The queue doesn't budge while Nagatoro almost passes out, prompting senpai to take her away. He takes her to a shade and offers her fennel to replenish her energy. After she denies going back, she gets lost and returns with some mustard ice cream. The two enjoy the ice cream and return home. Nagatoro talks about her busy schedule at the start of their summer break and asks senpai for his contact information. He talks about how he doesn't use Line due to the notifications, but she tells him that it's impossible since he's a loner. She then adds him to her favorites and congratulates him for being her cyberbullying victim. After parting ways, senpai realizes that he's holding the same bottle that Hayase had, fully lipped from earlier. His horniness gets the better of him as he goes for a mouthful, only for her to message him a pervert, before revealing she was spying from around the corner. A week passes, and Senpai-kun awakens to find himself inside the loading screen of Genshin Impact. A mysterious girl then tells him that he's the chosen one, and tells him that he has a unique skill called Virgin for Life. She then hands him a wizard's staff before throwing him off to fight the Demon Lord, and reveals herself to be Sakura. After a soft landing, he finds himself stranded in the fantasy world. He gets attacked by a giant lizard and tries to evade it with magic, only to find his staff is as limp as his other staff. He's about to get killed, but not before being found by Hayase Nagatoro, who punches the lizard back to its ancestral home. The two then go off on a mission to slay the Demon King, encountering the pudding monsters and giant goblins on their way. They finally face off against a tough opponent in the form of the Dark Dragon. Nagatoro tries to unleash her barrage of attacks, but almost gets killed before being saved by Senpai, who finally grows a pair. They then combine offense and finally beat it, with Senpai even getting a peck after. They then get joined by Gamo, who is cursed into being the dragon, and Yoshi, who hatches from an egg. 'Cause why not? The four finally reach the main lair and inside the Demon King's castle to find that the throne is empty. Naoto talks about the absence when suddenly the trio reveals themselves to be succubi, with Nagatoro as the demon lord. They then thank him for bringing them into the castle and start to bully him again and turn Naoto into their slave. Senpai screams out loud, only to find himself in a restaurant with people looking at him to figure out why this virgin is screaming. The nightmare comes true as the three horsewomen get there, so Naoto scrambles from there, but Hayase finds a notebook with her drawings in hentai format. She then chases after and teases him before running off with his notebook. The days of summer vacation are about to end, and Naoto gets a call from Hayase, who knows he's just rotting all day, and asks him to join them for the beach. Being the loser with no life, he joins the trio and gets called a loner sea louse all the way to the beach. The beach episode starts with Gamo accusing Senpai of peeking at her beach volleys. Yoshi also flashes and gets him flustered while Nagatoro blankly stares at them with nothing but murder behind her eyes. He then gets away from them with an excuse to get something to drink. As the trio enjoys the sea, the lonely sea louse tries to complete at least one drawing before the vacation ends. Nagatoro notices him, and Bro also kind of feels lonely, yapping about the popular kids. She then offers him to apply some sticky white lotion on his body, but he activates his virginity shield. She strips him down to his swimsuit and tells her she will be gentle. But this loser still doesn't want to get massaged and talks about how it'll create dating rumors, which would make her life hard. Hayase has enough and kicks him down before squirting sunscreen all over him. She then slowly gives him a foot job while telling him he's a loser who likes it rough. She's then joined by the other two, despite her disapproval. All the while, Naoto gets 3 foot jobs simultaneously. His body is covered by enough white cream to make him look like a Japanese actress. He has fun with the girls through various activities, and later admits to Nagatoro that he had fun at the beach, as he looks at the portrait he has drawn of hers. The next evening, Naoto notices that the summer festival is taking place and fantasizes about Nagatoro in her yukata, inviting him using her colorful language. He waits for her invitation at home by playing games and even decides to invite her. He finally decides to go to the festival alone. Being an introverted loser, he gets uncomfortable from the bustle and decides to go back after seeing everyone has invited someone. Suddenly, someone taps him and nightmares begin as he is chased and caught by Gamo and Yoshi. They tease him for thinking he will run into Hayase. They also tell him that Nagatoro is busy with the clubs and leash him after he tries to return. Gamo also clicks a picture and sends it to Nagatoro, who gets there at the speed of light. She asks to have her pet returned, but Gamo challenges her for the ownership of Paizen. They establish the rules and decide that it will be a team battle with the festival's minigames. At the shooting range, Hayase says that she's surprised to see Naoto and digs at him by asking if he was waiting for her invite. She then indirectly hints that she's open to his invitation. Everyone then spends the next 2 hours having fun with the games. The battle comes to an end as everyone shows their prizes. Team Gamo says they've won, but Hayase says that her team won by quality while buying off Yoshi. She announces herself as the victor and takes Senpai's collar off as the two leave. The remaining two wander around the stalls as Naoto thinks that it feels like a date. Hayase then spells it out for him before claiming she'd never date someone like him. She then asks to hold his hand before they get distracted by the fireworks. Hayase then takes him to see the fireworks while Naoto tells her that the last fireworks he saw was in elementary school. They again have to wait in a crowded queue, but Senpai remembers a shortcut. He tells Hayase to come with him, but she gets taken with the line. Naoto then grows a pair and rescues her before running off into the forest together. Nagatoro sarcastically questions his intent as they're alone in a dark jungle, but he takes her to the location where he saw the fireworks as a kid. After being awestruck, she again shames him by calling him a sleazy virgin. Senpai's marbles are still not pulled in as he questions what Hayase means by sleazy to put her on the spot. Hayase manages to turn it back on him and even questions if he can kiss her. He then challenges her to do it, only for the fireworks to reveal that other couples are making out. They run home, and Hayase regrets not being able to wear a yukata. Naoto then asks her to come together with him next year. She accepts, and even plans to wear matching yukata, only to say, Some days later, Senpai notices the squad on his way home from school. He eavesdrops when suddenly 2 guys join them, which makes Senpai jealous. The guys manage to effortlessly socialize, unlike his wimpy ass, and one of them even puts his arm around Hayase. He has enough and marches towards them, only to alert everyone. Maki and Yoshi invite him, and the boys ask what he wants. He hesitates at first, before boldly asking Hayase to join him for their Genshon session. She agrees, and on top of that, bro manages to bag all 4 demon spawns, leaving the 2 assholes b***less. They bully Paisen with a new name, Iro Manga Sensei, like the show, but he digs the bullying at this point. While hanging out with Naoto, Hayase notices how thin his arms are and calls him a bean sprout. As she watched Onegai Muscles, she decided to train him and promised that in 2 months, he'd be able to beat anyone who bullied him, including her. He rejects her offer as he is someone who can only lift a pencil at most. He says that he hates exercise that involves movement and wishes to do something stationary. She then orders him to get on all 4s to work on his triceps and sits on top of him. She tells him it's an original creation and decides to have him do it for 10 minutes. Senpai tries his hardest not to get hard, which proves to be difficult as she keeps edging him. The carnival ends when a group of students sees their pre-mating rituals. Later, Nagatoro asks him if he's studying properly, and he bluffs that he'll breeze through even though he was just playing Genshin the night before. She senses his bluff and tells him that he might start failing all his classes, to the point they'd be in the same class. She then imagines their life together in the same class, doing various activities, to which Senpai doesn't mind. Seeing his nonchalance, she's moved before hurling insults with noodle arms and telling him to study. He studies at the library, where Nagatoro tells her gang about their recent event. Gamo then tells him that if he hits a hat trick of failure, they'd be his senpai. Fear runs across his spine as he imagines a life of more torture, slavery, and masochism under his new senpai, which makes him study even more seriously. Sakura arrives to show that they're even worse off than him, which makes Gamo and Yoshi ask for his help, while Hayase hisses on. All the hard work pays off as he gets great marks, but Nagatoro sees it as a strong resistance against being her classmate. Later that day, Hayase hears a really sus noise involving Naoto and her classmates. After thinking that they're doing something ecchi, she barges into the room. They explain that they were removing a splinter from his finger, but she's so pissed that she removes it in one wipe without hearing anyone out. While returning home, Hayase challenges him to a game of Yanken, with the loser carrying the other's bag. She immediately loses and furiously carries his bag while he feels weird. She challenges him for a best of 3, and he lets her win. He carries her bag and gets punched as she makes a DBZ reference. The best of 3 ends as Naoto loses the 3rd game and has to carry Nagatoro. She teases him as it's his first time piggybacking a girl while he gets crushed under the burden. He feels that she's about to fall and tries to bring her up, only to touch her gyayat. She then runs the opposite way without looking back. Later, he waits for her message, but she calls him from her bathtub, which makes Senpai tweak hard. Naoto tweaks more after seeing her on the video, but Hayase thinks he is going crazy. After learning she accidentally video called him, she is embarrassed. The 2 kids then flurry around as they apologize to one another. The next day, Senpai is drawing a lamp but is worried about Hayase, who's really into shadowboxing after watching Hajime no Ippo. Naoto regrets lending her the show, but his worries double as she asks him to box with her. Being the beta he is, he transforms into her punching bag. He manages to clinch her, but it gets him labeled as a pervert. Hayase tells about their boxing incident to her group, who also wants a piece of him. She rejects their offer on his behalf, especially of an extremely excited Gamo, but they run towards the art room. She manages to get there in time to protect him, and gets challenged by Gamo as everyone watches on. A day later, Senpai wants to go to his oasis, the art room, only to see it vandalized by Picasso and her muses. He asks them why they're hanging out there instead of their usual spot. They then tell him about being annoyed by a bunch of Genshin and Animal Crossing players. He He is surprised to see them back down without a fight, but they tell him that it's more fun to send in a saboteur. At the dining hall, Sakura is slowly sowing seeds of implosion and drama among the nerds, who are into it as they've never had a girl talk to them. They talk about men being horny-ass mofos but think that senpai is a beta cuck who never gets horny. Hayase corrects them by saying he's the horniest creature she knows and shows them a demo. Gamo points out that it's just a virgin reacting, but Hayase tells them that the lines on his right hand have been erased. She then makes a bet by finding erotic mangas in the room for pancakes. She gets to searching, but Paisen gets worried, not because of hidden books, but because of their absence. He then goes into detail about having a hentai next door, talking about how he reads it for the plot and art. Sure, buddy. As Gamo and Yoshi bug Nagatoro, Senpai manages to sneak the book in and hints at her. She immediately notices and launches at him with her noodle arms after seeing what he is reading. Gamo and Yoshi, though, get creeped out by them and leave. The next day, Hayase comes for her usual visit, but Naoto notices her new earring. He shyly compliments her, and she shows him her piercing device. Nagatoro, of course, gets the idea to pierce his ear and tells him about wearing matching earrings. He likes the idea and fakes resistance as Hayase defiles his ear trying to drill his hole, only to learn that she pinched him. A tearful Sakura gets there to meet him as well, and she reveals that she's getting stalked by Kim Jong-un from the Genshin team. Paisien tells them to face the consequences of their action, but the group guilt-trips him. Sakura plans to rent him as her boyfriend to get rid of the ugly bastard. Hayase objects and tells them that he's too cultured and would end up teaming with the stalker. Paisien is still roped into the role, though, to Hayase's dismay. The next day, Naoto arrives in Drip for the date with Sakura, full of expectations, while the gang follows them to document their date. Hayase is not happy, though, as the gang talks about how they might end up together like in Rent a Girlfriend, although Naoto is more of an alpha than Kazuya. Sakura acts clingy before asking where he wants his first date to be. She takes him to his place, and just as things are about to get more heated, Nagatoro turns into the Terminator and arrests the stalker. As Kim apologizes and makes his escape, her friends also leave, cause there's nothing spicy left. On their way back, Nagatoro teases Senpai about his failed first date, but he tells her that it's fake. She then hints at their future date and talks about cultured stuff to get him flustered, only to label him a pervert. She then tells him he's not ready for dating, to which he happily agrees. Nagatoro asks Senpai if he wants some breasts, before revealing she was talking about chicken breasts, and calls him out for his culturedness. She still feeds him the chicken, though. Later, Naoto's gooning routine catches up to him as he runs like someone who has just awakened from a wheelchair. The squad is pointing at him, and Hayase feels embarrassed. On the way back, she asks him about practicing, but Bro yaps about training benefiting only those with talents. Hayase then tells him to shut the f*** up and get his ass ready for their secret training sessions. They meet on the weekend and Senpai gets flustered from seeing her tanned body. The two begin a training montage, but Senpai is more focused on her fit body. Scared that he'll be called cultured, he passes her for a hot minute, only to taste dust from her shoes. Senpai knocks on heaven's door after running for 5 km without rest, but he learns that they're not even close to the finish line. She knows that he's going to tap out and bully him by telling him how even grade schoolers would beat him up. She even shows him her guyet and calls him Maggot Senpai. He then gets fueled by rage and runs again. After reaching the finish line, they begin stretching, but Senpai is more distracted by her flexibility. She sees his stiffness and helps him stretch out before performing the fusion dance, as said by Yoshi. On Monday, Naoto is thinking about the model for his drawing when he gets a Hayase jump scare. She agrees to model for his festival masterpiece without his input, but he wants a male model, causing her to mangle him. She shows him his hentai sketch of hers and blackmails him, but he agrees. He traps her with the condition that she needs to wear the exact catgirl custom as drawn by him. The next day, Naoto feels bad for providing such a tough task, but Hayase arrives in the exact custom. He still wins, though, as he gets to see his girlfriend cosplay his favorite character. He compliments her, but she throws a barrage of punches like Star Platinum, all the while her gang watches in horror. Nagatoro poses for the art, asking to be drawn sexy to a beet red senpai, while everyone tells what they'll be doing at the festival. They ask what the art club will be doing, but Naoto remembers his first festival with the club president, But as she's absent this year, he thinks of scrambling something, but the girls grill him with their suggestions of torture and humiliation. Suddenly, he hears a familiar footstep closing in and asks the girls to hide in the next room. Sana, the stern club president, gets there and talks about the festival. She then talks about the nasty rumors going around about how the club has been turned into a host club. She decides to terminate the club. All the while, the gang overhears this, and Nagatoro steps out to stop her. She turns into Saul Goodman and tells her while she was absent for whatever reasons, Naoto was keeping the art club running. She then tells her that it's an injustice to just show up and terminate the club. Sana then challenges Naoto to a dual art show with a voting system at the festival and stakes the art club's termination. Naoto is scared, but Hayase assures him that he'll win. Later, Nagatoro makes everyone laugh at her president's imitation, but Naoto asks to stop it. After deflecting the ex-lover allegations and Hayase's dagger eyes, he tells them it's their fault he's in the mess. He then tells them that he has zero chance of winning against her, talking about how she placed the art club at the 6th rank among 50 last year. He also talks about her winning inter-school art competitions before revealing her magnum opus, her self-portrait, with the giant melons on display. Nagatoro, though, finds the reason why Naoto is such a big fan of hers and alleges that he goons to that picture. He says that he admires the techniques, but he's not beating their sussy baka allegations. Nagatoro still believes they will win through her modeling, but Naoto believes it's impossible to be against someone he looks up to. Gamo adds that her hills pale in comparison to the president's double Everest. Gamo then tells Nagatoro to look at it from a rational perspective before they double down on how she needs more than cuteness to beat the president's cannons. Nato has enough and talks about how all size makes his wood rise, making Hayase happy. After the gang apologizes, they brainstorm ideas, including nude modeling, before revealing the arsenal, Catgirl cosplays. Later, on their way home, Hayase asks if they can win against such an aggressive piece, but Naoto assures that simplicity is the key. A few days later, they try out various pieces, including Hayase in a swimsuit, but he cannot draw her. She then tries on the cat costume, but Naoto cannot figure out the composition. She finally decides to go fully nude inside a towel and gets groped by Gamo. With all the pressure around him, Naoto insists on her being her true self, but everyone disagrees. He finally tells her to not model for him, as he doesn't want her to be humiliated if he takes the L. He also believes that the battle is between him and the president, which makes Nagatoro leave angrily, as she believes he likes Sana more. The next day, Naoto finds out that the club has already been divided by the president, each getting their workplace. He gets to draw a good piece, but it's not enough to be displayed at the festival. The president appears behind him, fully naked, inside a towel. She critiques his art, but Naoto is distracted by her bonkers. He asks her what's missing, and she tells him that it's missing the passion. Hayase arrives to check up on him, but misunderstands the situation as Sana's modeling nude for him. She immediately runs away, but the president understands what's going on and shouts at him to pursue her, as an artist needs to pursue his muse. He finally catches up to Hayase, who's happy to see him but acts nonchalantly. He fumbles about what he is going to say when suddenly two girls get there. They ask her if he's hitting on her, but Hayase straight up calls him a stalker and runs away. He still chases after her across the school as he remembers all of the previous episodes. They end up at the pool, where Naoto finally grows the balls to ask her to model for him. Hayase, still angry, rejects and tells him to go after the president's giant, when suddenly she slips. She gets saved by her senpai, who tells her that she's attractive just the way she is, while the grip starts to loosen. Both get flustered, and finally slip into the pool after she calls her creepy, but are back on talking terms as she begins to gleefully bother him again. Some days later, Senpai finally shows his art to Hayase's friend, who praises them for their simplicity. Hayase's nose extends after hearing him spout the concept, but Gamo points out that the pictures seem to be painted from a romantic perspective. The gang then eavesdrops to find that Sana's not there and heads out for recon. Hayase asks him to come, but he's afraid of seeing the masterpiece she's drawn. Nagatoro assures that no matter what she has drawn, they'll beat her, and head out to see the drawing. She suddenly collapses and starts to agree with Senpai, as there's no way they could beat that. They then talk about how she has transformed from the Queen of Ludi to Demon Queen, and suggests Hayase strip down. Naoto disagrees, and Sakura seems to take his side as the Buddha, only for her to cook something lewd. Naoto then tells them that it's between him and Hayase, but the girls insist. Later, after finishing the banner paintings, Naoto walks along with the president to find anything. She tells him that she's not holding back and expects a great battle. The festival gets underway as the two art club contestants give an interview regarding the themes of their pieces. Sana eloquently talks about her theme, and Senpai shouts it out. Suddenly, the Tora Cats appear and begin their operation. They present their TikTok dance before pulling viewers for their art, as well as bullying them as the reward, which works out well. The festival gets underway, and so does the competition between the Giants and the Pussycats. Naoto notices the traffic at the president's booth, but is happy to see the girls working hard for him. He slowly gets jealous seeing Hayase bully others, but he also gets attention from girls who are digging his art. Hayase gets jealous now, and Gamo advises them to go for lunch. They then find out that Kim Jung is the cat No 2, and beats him up while the couple goes out for lunch. On the way, Hayase talks about how spring has finally arrived for the sea louse, as he has finally got attention from the girls. He then genuinely thanks her for modeling for him and supporting him, as he believes he couldn't have done it without her. Nagatoro almost smiles, but keeps her tsundere mode on and slaps him. After lunch, the two return as Hayase hypes up Nato, only to see some commotion going on. They see that the president's art is being covered as she gets called by the student guidance. The council president tells her while she understands art is subjective, she cannot put her melons on display. She then talks about moral order as her members do the Elon hand raise. Sana fights for her right to express herself, but gets shot down. The gang believes it's an easy victory, but Naoto stands up on behalf of her. He tells them that while art is subjective, it was not her intention to manipulate the viewer's lust. He also says that her art style has inspired him to find his inspiration, Nagatoro. Hayase then gives her opinion before Yoshi finally shows her footage of connoisseurs appreciating her art as well. As the dust settles, Sana declares Nato as the victor and allows the art club to continue. Being the loser, she has to advertise for them in a bunny suit. Turns out she digs it though, and the girls earn some dough. Later, Hayase catches the two in a promiscuous situation, but is happy to see Nato's art appreciated by Sana. He is then dragged to the concert, and the next day, life returns to normal. Naoto draws Hayase again, and gets rewarded with a genuine kiss, which is a bit underwhelming for the bullying he suffered, but if you made it this far, you have more spine than Naoto. Be sure to subscribe before the bullies come to beat you down. Thanks for watching and enjoy this next video, my legendary otaku dweebs.